very much for the introduction and this really nice welcome. My session is about Fujitsu integrated system PRIMEFLEX, and what I want to bring across is that it equals fast time to production and more. And I want to start with a real opportunity for each of you. And I'm pretty sure you have seen tons of slides already showing all these megatrends such as cloud, big data, social, mobile, and the Internet of Things, which was discussed in the keynote before the break. But I'm starting with these because these new megatrends, they enable a lot of new business opportunities, which also means there are demands coming up for new ICT services from your business units. And this also means that ICT becomes more important than it's been ever before. In the past, it was just seen as a productivity enabler, but now it's really breaking new ground. It's seen as an innovation engine, as a backbone of the business, and a factor which is decisive for success and failure and growth of your business. And if you, as an IT manager, you do it the right way, you have the potential to become a real hero in the enterprise. But, you know, providing new ICT services in a first stage requires new infrastructures. And this poses some challenges because building a data center infrastructure is complex. And the reason for this is the complexity of the infrastructure as such, because there are so many pieces of the puzzles, such as server, storage systems, network components, virtualization layer for all of these, operating systems, middleware, application, and last but not least, a management layer on top of that in order to keep everything under control. And if a customer is doing this all on his own, actually he has to select hopefully the right components, he has to procure the components, integrate them. This requires a tedious coordination among various stakeholders. Then a complex test matrix needs to be worked off because the compatibility of these components is not always guaranteed, and the fact that these components may originate from multiple vendors doesn't make things easier, of course. And only after all of this has been done, well, you can start the integration into the production environment. And all of this requires a deep knowledge and skills, and as each installation is different, the maintenance effort will be quite high. So, in other words, a do-it-yourself approach is error-prone, it's long-lasting, it's risky, and also expensive. And the question is, why should we reinvent the wheel for every project? I think nobody here in this room would get the idea to build a PC himself, because there are vendors out there who have proven that they can do it better, cheaper, faster. The same is also true for servers. And the question is justified. Why should we stop with servers? Why shouldn't we move forward and do the same thing for complete infrastructures as well? And that's exactly what integrated systems is about. And here I'm talking in particular about Fujitsu integrated system, PRIMEFLEX. PRIMEFLEX is the brand for all integrated systems from Fujitsu. By definition, an integrated system is a pre-configured, pre-integrated, and pre-tested combination of all these data center components such as server, storage, network connectivity, and software, where we see management software as mandatory, while all the other pieces can be optionally included. And the idea behind integrated systems is that they are optimally designed based on our best practices and our vast project experience. And just to illustrate what the advantage in terms of time can be of an integrated systems approach compared to a do-it-yourself approach. In a do-it-yourself approach, when the project starts, you have to start with the design, with the selection of the components, with all these nasty things that we were discussing before, integrating the components, testing all the stuff to ensure compatibility. And only after all of this has happened, you can do the deployment and the integration into the production environment. And if we regard the integrated systems approach, when you start the project, all the nasty things have already been done before the project has started, have been done by Fujitsu, so the project is actually limited to the on-site deployment and the integration into the production environment, which helps you save a lot of time. But saving a lot of time is only one aspect out of many that relate to benefits you can gain from PRIMEFLEX. Simplicity, no trial and error testing, less skills are demanded. This is also meant by this. Okay, the time I mentioned already in terms of planning and design, the time will be minimized. Faster time to production is here the buzzword. But you also minimize the risk, because you can be absolutely sure that all the components used will be compatible. You can be absolutely sure that the integrated system will function, will work at the end of the day. And you can also be sure that this is really a very efficient solution, because resources are utilized much better, components are optimally harmonized. This relates to cables, to data center space, to energy consumptions, to cooling requirements. And you can also be sure that this has a positive impact on the maintenance efforts, which will be reduced. And whenever it comes to a break-fix situation, actually the problems will be identified more rapidly and will be fixed more rapidly. And for sure, this will have an impact on the cost side as well, be it CapEx and being OpEx. And we should not forget one thing, and this is you will be relieved from all these nasty tasks, which means you have more time to focus on the really important things for the business. You can move away from building and from a build and maintenance focus. You will improve the responsiveness to what the business units demand from you. PRIMEFLEX is available in two delivery models. The first one is ready to run. Ready to run means the integrated system is built and tested as a single product. It's not just pre-integrated and pre-tested. It comes even pre-installed ex-factory, which means there is no design effort at all. It's absolutely risk-free. From a procurement point of view, there is pretty often only a single order code, or at least a simplified configuration, which makes procurement very simple. This is definitely the fastest option to operation. On the other side, there are reference architectures. We understand by reference architectures tested and validated design blueprints based on previous projects or on a proof of concept. Here, normally, the integration and the installation happens on site, but is, of course, accompanied and supported by detailed installation and configuration descriptions. The great benefit out of these reference architectures is that they give you all the flexibility to adapt and adjust them to your specific requirements. Here, more or less, you have to take yeah, what comes pre-installed. And here you have the flexibility to custom tailor the infrastructure, to custom tailor the configuration, of course with our help or with the help of our partners. But nevertheless, design is fast and easy because you need not start from the scratch. Risk, again, is minimized, and the project duration will be shortened. I said it, with PRIMEFLEX reference architectures, customers expect installation and configuration descriptions. But if you look around in the market, this is not quite self-evident with reference architectures out there. And that's why we are very proud that we can say these comprehensive guidelines are delivered with each and every PRIMEFLEX reference architecture as a standard. As already mentioned, we give tailoring support, and due to our staging center capabilities, we are even able to pre-install an adjusted reference architecture, adjusted to your specific requirements, thus combining the advantages of reference architectures and ready to run. And that's why I think we can say that reference architectures from Fujitsu is certainly more than the norm. Just to have mentioned it once, of course, as far as the components included in PRIMEFLEX are concerned, we use our own components, our own intellectual property, such as Primergy servers, PrimeQuest servers, for instance, also Eternal storage systems, just to mention a few of them. But there are also included components from leading technology partners in the world, the most important ones being shown here on this slide. And most of you might be aware of the fact that there is a new buzzword out there, which is hyperconverged. And that's why I want to bring across that when we are talking about integrated systems, it's not just the traditional converged type of integrated systems, but also hyperconverged, of course. For those ones who are not that familiar with hyperconverged, I try to bring across what all of this is about. There is interconnected servers where instead of an external storage, the local hard disks or local SSDs are used as a storage, meaning you have no storage area network. If you don't have a SAN, there is no need to do a SAN management, which makes things, of course, much easier. Instead of the physical SAN, you've got the virtual SAN with a software-defined storage, meaning everything can be defined by software. There is a unified management for both, for the compute resources and the storage resources. And in order to manage the storage resources, there are also data services delivered within the hyperconverged system, be it data tiering, be it data deduplication, snapshots, or data replication. Everything is virtualized, high availability is built in, and this is very, very easy to explain. We have multiple physical nodes. We have this data replication, meaning when any of these physical nodes fails, we have still all the data in place, and we can still go on working, no doubt about this one. But the great advantage of hyperconverged is the scalability of performance and capacity. The only thing you have to do is you add physical nodes, physical servers, and that's it. And adding these nodes, it will be discovered automatically by the hyperconverged software, so to speak, and in the same way, what by the way happens more rarely if you remove servers, this will also be detected automatically. And the benefits of hyperconverged are, of course, crystal clear. We have a leaner infrastructure. architecture with less components. This requires less space in the data center, usually less energy consumption and less cooling requirements. The administration efforts are lower, and also less skills are needed, which means for you that sometimes lower paid staff could do the job. Not in general, but pretty often the total cost of ownership will be lowered, and the great things based on these scalability capabilities, I mentioned it already, the growth with increasing demands, and as everything is software defined, the flexible alignment to the business. And therefore, hyperconverged, it's also worth mentioning, is a very important building block of another buzzword which is out there in the market, the software-defined data center. And maybe a bit of an enthusiasm came now across from my side with regard to hyperconverged. But this does not mean that I want to say that hyperconverged is the only recipe for everything. I really want to underline here, hyperconverged is not the optimum solution for every use case. We have to have a closer look at the individual use cases. For instance, there are workloads which are optimally supported by physical platforms. If you regard monolithic applications that do not really support a scale-out approach, I would not recommend to go for a hyperconverged here. Or have a closer look at the scalability demands of the compute and the storage resources. If these demands, they scale in tandem, I would say this is a great solution. But if they do not scale in tandem, please have a closer look at it. And we also have to state that hyperconverged is always based on one virtualization technology. If you have use cases where multiple virtualization platforms are needed, well, then probably this is not the right way to go. And then you should have a look at the cost. You know, you have to be aware of the fact that with hyperconverged, sometimes there are particular requirements for certain components, such as SSDs, certain controllers need to be taken, and this could cause non-obvious hardware cost. And sometimes it's also worth mentioning the software licenses could be even higher compared with a traditional converged solution. So I say this quite frankly because there is no reason for my company, Fujitsu, to drive you into one or the other direction, because we can help you with the optimum solution for your specific use case. And another thing is the built-in data services. Built-in data services is, of course, a great thing if you need them. But if you don't need them, then you might say, so what? Okay, so my recommendation here is actually to decide per every individual use case whether hyperconverged fits or not. And my recommendation is also to make use of it wherever the benefits outweigh the drawbacks. PRIMEFLEX is not just about boxes. PRIMEFLEX also requires flexible service options along all the phases of the project, starting from consulting, especially when it comes to reference architectures. It's about design, meaning adapting the configuration, giving you statements about the sizing. Then it's about the on-site deployment, the introduction into the integration, into the production environment. Additional services may be needed. What's also worth mentioning is the fact fact that integrated systems include multiple components. And these components, they do have different life cycles. And whenever a component is replaced or upgraded, you have to make sure that at the end of the day, the new component is again compatible with the other components. And therefore, lifecycle management is a very important thing that you absolutely can expect for all the PRIMEFLEX offering from Fujitsu. And solution support with a single point of contact. Make a hook behind it. And if you want to go a step further, if you want to focus more on the really strategic things of the business rather than operation and managing infrastructures, then we can discuss our data center services, be it managed data center, be it managed hosting. So all these services can be delivered by Fujitsu, but also from our local partners here in the country. So all told, I want to bring across, you will get any guidance and support that you need. And although the brand PRIMEFLEX is a pretty new one in the market, we introduced the brand hardly 1 year ago, we have to say that integrated systems is nothing new at all for Fujitsu. We probably have the longest track record in the market. We shipped the first integrated system in 2002, long before anybody in the market used the term of integrated system. And since then, we continuously optimized our processes for end-to-end solutions, be it on the product management side, in manufacturing, quality assurance, or support. And of course, you want to know how our integrated systems look like. And first of all, I want to show that we try to address use case areas which are of high relevance for our customers. And these are SAP and Microsoft environments, server and desktop virtualization, private cloud infrastructures. There are special solutions for high availability and disaster recovery in place. And not to forget the areas of big data and of high-performance computing, where I also know that these areas are quite important for customers in this country. And here you see the individual offerings allocated to the individual use case areas. You might see that some of these offerings appear in multiple boxes, for instance, PRIMEFLEX for SAP HANA, addresses, of course, SAP environments, but at the same time, it's also a very important building block in big data infrastructures. Here on the server and desktop virtualization side, we have with V-Shape a solution for the traditional way of doing server and desktop virtualization with external storage, but we do also have innovative solutions such as PRIMEFLEX for VMware EvoRail, addressing the hyper-converged market, with PRIMEFLEX for VMware vSAN being the respective reference architecture. On the private cloud side, we know that VMware has a very strong footprint. That's why we address here the VMware vCloud stack. But we also know that there is a pressure coming from the open source camp, and that's why we have in place our offering PRIMEFLEX for Red Hat OpenStack. And just to mention a last one here, this is PRIMEFLEX for Hadoop, which is a real flagship in the big data area. And if you want to know more about this, attend my second breakout later on in room 3, and you will hopefully learn more about it. This is just another representation of the same thing that also shows what is delivered as ready to run, what is delivered as a reference architecture, and what is delivered with both options. And I do not want to read all these infographics here that we collected from customers. You will get the slides afterwards. You can read this by yourself. I just want to make one statement, and that is the benefits of the PRIMEFLEX approach that we discussed before is, of course, not the only benefit that you can gain from our PRIMEFLEX systems, because each PRIMEFLEX system is built for a certain purpose, and therefore it should have the respective benefits. So the overall benefit of PRIMEFLEX systems is always the original benefit of what it is targeted at and the benefits of the PRIMEFLEX approach. So we started with a challenge, the challenge of building data center infrastructures. But I'd like to state that every challenge can be an opportunity, because now you know how building data center infrastructures in this new world looks like. It can be simple, it can be fast, at minimized risk and optimum cost. And I think this contributes to your better everyday life and to your peace of mind that you can sleep better during the nights, because there is Fujitsu integrated system PRIMEFLEX, which is available as ready-to-run and or reference architectures. We support both models, converged and hyper-converged. All these systems are built from best-in-class components from ourselves and our technology partners. We provide the relevant and required service options. We do have the long-standing experience now for almost 13 years. There are many reference customers and case studies out there. And by the way, with our currently 21 portfolio elements, we've got one of the broadest portfolios of integrated systems in the market. And this is, of course, only a snapshot of today. We are not sleeping, we are not slumbering, we are developing this portfolio further. And this means actually with Fujitsu integrated system PRIMEFLEX, you should have all the prerequisites to become the hero in your enterprise. And if anybody is asking me how, my answer would of course be with Fujitsu by your side. And if I have not been able to bring across what Fujitsu integrated system PRIMEFLEX is about, I would say there is still a few minutes left, and there should be time for a video, and hopefully this video will then explain what I have not been able to explain. But first of all, thank you very much for your attention.